Hi, welcome to our home bar and welcome to our YouTube channel, Wise Whiskey. I'm Tony, and on today's episode, we are going to do a blind tasting that my wife picked out for me. I have in my pocket which whiskeys these are. Haven't seen that list, and I also have a couple notes with her because I gave her a pretty broad but simple prompt, which was try to stump the hell out of me. So I don't know if her thought process was do 4 wildly different whiskeys, if there's some type of theme to it, or if she wanted to go with 4 very similar whiskeys. But the idea was try to stump me, make it difficult for me to go through this blind. So Lord only knows what she's done. The only rule was it has to be whiskey. So I'm going to rate them and see how I think they rate. I'll rank them. And then I'm going to give a guess of at least the style, maybe like an ABV or age range. I'm not saying I'm going to sit here and pick out the exact whiskey. It never happens. I may not even try to guess that. But I will try to throw some guesses out just to give an idea that I hopefully know something. But again, if you watched other people do blinds before, done it yourself, they're very humbling. And it is a great way to continue learning because there's almost always at least one that just completely befuddles you. So let's get started with number 1. Start with the nose. This definitely feels like a bourbon or a rye. Got some brown sugar. There does seem to be this little hint of something behind the sweetness that I'm wanting to say is like a rye spice or almost an herbal character. But it's sweet enough and brown sugar forward enough. It could just be a high rye bourbon, or it could just be an interesting note that I'm getting. But at the moment, I would say I'm leaning towards a sweet rye. Let's try the palate. This is my first sip of the day. So on that very first sip, honestly not trying to get a lot, just trying to acclimate to some proof. I will sip enough of these to kind of get a first impression, but I will come back and do them all in a different order before I do a ranking, or typically before I go too far into what I'm guessing. It tends to be like your first one of the day will hit really hard or be underwhelming. I don't know. A lot of times you go back to it after having some other stuff and your opinion changes. Having said that, let's take our second sip and see what we think. That brown sugar, vanilla sweetness definitely comes through on the palate. Not a lot up front, although there is some kind of spice or tingle towards the front of my tongue that kind of came back later, which is making me think rye spice. Maybe a decent amount of heat. If this is a higher proof whiskey, they hide the proof well because it really doesn't hit you aggressively. But there is a little bit of linger and some finish to this. Now again, first sip of the day, so I'm going to reserve too much thought, but it's nice. It tastes delicious. I know that. Yeah, I'm having a hard time deciding, did I get some oak because that's the first thing I tried today, or is there some age to that? Did I get some lingering spice and a little bit of a Kentucky hug because there's some significant proof here because it's the first thing I drank today, booze-wise? Yeah, hard to know for sure. We'll come back and reassess that one after we have a little bit more. I do, when I'm doing a blind, one thing I do like to do sometimes, okay, none of these smell peated. And the reason I check that is because I'm going to bounce around after I go through the first lineup. But if one comes across as definitely peated, I will usually try to kind of circle back to the other ones that are unpeated before I go to the peated whiskey, just so I can get a full taste of them without kind of having that peat linger on my palate. All of these smell unpeated, so I'll just mow through the 4 samples, and then I like to kind of zigzag back and forth through so that I'm not doing them the same whiskeys after, right before, right after each other. I just feel like it gives me a better chance to taste everything in them and kind of examine them on an even playing field. So, number 2. Definitely less of that sweetness up front than the first one. It's hard nose for me to... Feels like there's a little proof in there. A little hot on the nostrils. Maybe some rye spice. I can't tell if that's the proof or if it's kind of a spicy. I'm not getting anything that would make me think Irish or Scotch. Maybe a little fruity. Let's go to the palate. I have no earthly idea what I just drank. I'm glitching a little bit. Let me take a second sip of that. There's an almost spicy or savory note to this. But then it gets really dry. It doesn't come across as a ton of proof. I don't get a lot of oak even though it's drying. I'm not getting a lot of anything. It's not unpleasant, but it's just there's nothing about that I could point out as a defining note or character that would typically point you in the direction of a style or a specific distillery. Man, I'm just really I'm really struggling with number 2. I am kind of giving these an initial score and then going back to them. Okay, let's go to number 3. I've been doing a lot of the NA Guinnesses with these lately because I've been shooting a couple videos at a time. I was a little bit where I was kind of coming back from being under the weather. And I got to say, the NA Guinness is really nice as a palate cleanser, and I do enjoy them when I'm not, but this is my first real Guinness I've had, and man, it is hitting the spot today. Okay, number 3. So this has a completely different nose. She definitely did not go with 4 extremely similar whiskeys. Oh my gosh. This has a breadiness to it. A floral note. Slightly nutty, but not like the peanut that you get from some bourbons. This is almost like almond, like almond extract. Yeah, floral, light, almondy. Sweet, but in a completely different way than the brown sugar of the first one. It's more delicate. This is making me think Irish, Scotch, possibly Japanese even, although I typically don't get quite as malt forward note from Japanese whiskey. I mean, I only have one bottle of Japanese up there and a couple of Indians. I'm not thinking this is that. Okay. It's much more savory on the palate. Almost a touch of cigar smoke. But I don't think it's peated. But you know that slightly ashy thing that can be there after you've smoked a cigar and you're sitting down after? There's almost something like that. It's very light, it's very faint. little more of the sweetness and the nose is coming through on that second sip. Yeah. Honey, floral, lightly fruited. A little bit of barley, which I think is what I kind of got as that ashy note. It's just some must from the barley. On the second sip, really good. Really like the second sip. If I come back to that, and that so far, clear winner out of the first three. That is delicious on the second sip. Very interested to see what it's like when I go back to it on the second round. Not a ton of proof, which is also making me think Scotch or Irish. Yeah, interesting. Okay, number 4. It smells like buttered toast. Maybe some honey or floral notes as well. But yeah, like buttery toast. There's just a touch of a toasted kind of grain note, but not like the soft bready note here. This has been toasted or charred, but a little creamy or buttery. And then some fruitiness behind it, maybe apricot. Man. Okay. That must have a little bit of peat in it. Wow. There is nothing on the nose. But there is definitely a touch of campfire or wood smoke on the palate. Take a second sip. I have I normally pick up peat on the nose really well. And it's not there, but there is something savory on the palate with the sweetness and the other notes I got before. Shit, man. This is a really tough one. God. She took the prompt to heart because I am genuinely stumped. I am extremely unsure of a couple of the things I tried. I'm not even sure how to rate that one. I don't even know that I hated it or loved it. I am very confused at the moment. Okay. I had number 2 as my least favorite so far, and that one was a really confusing one for me. I'm going to go back to number 2 and give it a shot now. A lot more brown sugar on the nose now. After going to these that I think are international and coming back, this smells very American. A lot more sweetness on the nose now. Maybe some cherry as well. Almost into cherry cough syrup, but not quite to the point of being, yeah. That's my very professional term for when cherry goes from being nice to cherry cough syrup is You can see the book deals coming for my for my how-to tasting guide, right? Sorry, I can't believe I just said as a descriptor. I apologize. You all deserve better than that. Okay. Yeah, so there's a bitterness at the end. It is still very drying. The last time she did a flight, she put Elijah Craig 18 in it. And I don't think that's what this is, but it reminds me of it because Elijah Craig 18 is a unique whiskey in that it's very aged, but it's under 100 proof. And so you don't get the complexity and finish and heat that you typically get with an older whiskey. And there's something here that is adding a tannic, dry, almost bitter but doesn't quite go there, but kind of earthy character. But it doesn't have a lot of body. It doesn't have a ton of complexity. And it's very sweet on the nose, very bourbon. And there's just a touch of spice there that I could see being rye spice. I am... If she put Elijah Craig 18 right back into another blind, that is devilish. But I asked her to stump me. There's just something about that is... There's a tannic, bitter, earthy note, but without the oakiness that you typically get with age. I don't think there's a ton of proof there. There's not a lot of overwhelming complexity. I think that's probably going to be my last place whiskey. It's going to be my lowest score. And I'm trying to decide, do I think she put Elijah Craig 18 back in because it flummoxes me? Or is it maybe just not a very well-made rye where there's a touch of spice, some earthy, bitter tones in there? I think I'm just going to... I don't even know what whiskey would be. I don't own a huge amount of ryes, and most of them are really, really good ones. Maybe the Bradshaw rye or the regular Devil's River rye. Those are two bottles I have that, are not bad whiskeys. I'm not saying this is awful. It's just not anything that's like superlative. It's not crazy impressive. I will tell you that Devil's River has another rye in there that I love. I think it's a fantastic. I've actually got 2 bottles of it. So, and I haven't tasted the Bradshaw rye in forever. And there's just something about that earthiness. Yeah, I imagine that this is going to stay in last place. I'll try the rest. But I'm guessing this is my last place. And I'm going to say that number 2 is a rye. Under 6 years and under 100 proof. So let me write that. Minus 6 years, minus 100 proof. I do not feel good about that guess. This is probably I don't say that with a lot of confidence. But I've talked myself into it, and I've named some brands, and we're going to stick with it. God help us. All right. We're going to bounce to number 3, which I had as my best score on the first round. Again, man, fruity, light, delicate, malty. This is an Irish or a Scotch. I mean, it could be Hibiki, but I don't think so. A little bit of spice. There is still a touch of that. An ashtray or campfire, I know what I'm getting. It's got to be something kind of just savory or different. I think it's something with my palate today. Because I don't think that's a peated whiskey at all. Man, is that good though. Gosh. When I go back to the nose, that breadiness. Gosh. I'm going to guess that is an Irish whiskey. Between the Powers, the John's Lane, and the Three Swallows, which I have not had enough, even the Glendalough, which has surprised us in blinds, the Teeling is something I love. I don't think this is Teeling, but man, that whiskey always surprises me in blinds as well and just does really well. Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it has a ton of proof, but there's just something about it that doesn't quite say Scotch to me. I don't feel confident, but I'm going to say that is an Irish. Hell, I'll do it. I'm going to say that's an Irish single pot still. I'm wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. So far, that is my highest score, and I'm not going to change my original. It's a delicious sip, whatever it is. Man, I think she did a bourbon, a rye, an Irish, and a Scotch. Maybe that's what happened here. Now, see, this is not giving me near as much of that malty note that this had. Yeah, this just has like a warm, bready thing to it. That has very little finish, very little proof. It almost has a touch of smoke to it still, which I said before. But I don't think I have anything up here that is blended to the point where you don't smell smoke on it, but you taste a little bit of smoke. Unless I've got like a bottom shelf. Gosh, I haven't tried like the Cutty Sark. I wonder if she found the Cutty Sark underneath and snuck that in. I haven't tried that in forever. I typically get more of the grain alcohol and kind of a sharpness on it. I'm going to say blended Scotch. And again, I think I'm wrong. I'm wondering if there's not just this time of year with your sinuses and the allergies and the weather changes. I'm wondering if there's not just something a little off with my palate, because I'm just getting a couple of notes that I wouldn't typically find or that I don't quite trust. But maybe she really did just put together a blind or sneak something in that was a really sneaky pick and confused the heck out of me. Gosh. I'm struggling with this one more than I thought I would. Okay. Let's go to our last, number one. Let's go back to this. Still very brown sugar forward. Very sweet. Very American. I'm not getting a ton past that. It's a brown sugar bomb on the nose. There's a sweetness. And again, I can't tell if this is... There's something that goes... Excuse me. There is something going on when I try this that... It almost disappears on the palate up front. But then there are lingering things that come back. So it's like it has this way of being very simple but very complex at the same time, which not something I come across often. I love the nose, even though it is kind of one note. It's very pleasant on the palate. I have a really hard time placing it. I'm going to say this is a bourbon. 4 to 8 years. Under 100 proof. So now I'm going to get her results. I told you I would rank them. So I will tell you. Number 2 was my lowest score. And I said that I think it's a rye under 6 years and under 100 proof. And it was Buffalo Trace. So I could not have been further off. I mean, it smells like grape candy now. It smells like classic Buffalo Trace. That kind of grapey, smarty candy note. A little bit of cherry. I could not have been more wrong on that. I love Buffalo Trace, and I gave it the lowest score. I mean, for what it is at the price point, I think Buffalo Trace is such a great beginner bourbon, such a great well bourbon. It's what we use when we make cocktails and just want to sip on something neat or on the rocks in the summertime. And Jesus Christ, we got that wrong. That was bad. My third place was number 4. I said I thought this was a blended scotch, and it was Hibiki Harmony, which is a Hibiki Harmony is one of my favorite bottles that I absolutely love. It's my Japanese whiskey. I did say that I thought one of these could be Japanese, but I'm relatively certain it was number 3 and not number 4. Golly. It's a blended Japanese whiskey. Even now, there's so little on the nose. I typically love that whiskey, and it just did not show up for this blind. Number 1, I said I thought was a bourbon between 4 and 8 years and under 100 proof. Put that in second place. That was JT Mellick. And JT Mellick is a rice whiskey from Louisiana. I will say it's 4 years old, and it is 96 proof. So age and proof, I was right there. But this is a rice whiskey. It's not a bourbon because it's not made with corn. It's made with rice. But gosh, it's good. And it's nice. It's not, listen, like I said, it's got some complexity. It's got some unique flavors. It does not blow you away. But man, it's interesting and different and affordable. I highly recommend. And now that I know, there's this slightly sweet, but it almost becomes chalky thing that I get from JT Mellick when I know it's JT Mellick. And I haven't decided if it's actually there or if it's just me imagining the rice. And I don't know. But that was my number 2, JT Mellick. I picked number 3 as my first. I said I thought I was looking at an English pot still, or Irish pot still, sorry, or a Scotch with this great character. I thought it was easy drinking, but had some complexity, some unique notes. And it turned out that was the Glenmorangie Triple Cask Reserve, which is one of the well scotches I got from my wife because this is more in a flavor range that she likes. You can see that this bottle is relatively low, and that's because this is kind of her everyday pour when she's in a scotch mood. I, historically, have not been the biggest fan of this bottle, and I just gave it a great score. I thought it had a wonderful character to it, and I am blown away. I mean, I said Scotch or Irish, and when I said it was Irish pot still, I told you I didn't feel confident about it. But I can tell you that if you had told me this was a Scotch, I would have made 12 guesses before I made this one, or more, because wow. And this is why blinds are fun. You get rid of your preconceived notions and your bias, and you just taste things. And historically, I like Glenmorangie as a distiller. I like, particularly with the refresh they've done, I think their age statements, their styles they're doing, the proof that they're putting bottles at. I'm a big fan of what they're doing overall. If I remember right, this is even and I want to say this is like an 80 proof bottle. Where the heck is the proof on here? Gosh. I don't see it. What the heck? So what's interesting about this is aged in bourbon, virgin oak, and rye cask. So you're definitely getting a little bit more of a American whiskey influence there. And my wife is very into the bourbon aged and like the Scotch whiskeys that have some of those American whiskey notes. She likes things that are unpeated or very, very low peat for the most part. Man, I genuinely am struggling to find the proof on here, which is crazy. I'll have to look it up, but I don't believe it's very high proof. But I will say that of all the really big popular distilleries, when you talk about like Macallan, Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie, to be completely honest, I feel like I try to stay away from all the really Glenlivet. Just a lot of those really big Scotch distilleries are doing single malt, and they're doing some pretty, they're doing good stuff, but they're very mainstream. They're not doing the craft focus where it's 46% non-chill filter, no color added. The really unique scotches, which are what I tend to prefer. I will tell you, I think Glenmorangie of all the really big ones is probably putting out the best stuff. Their distillate has this kind of orange note to it that's really nice. And they're, for being basically a well Scotch, not just bottom shelf blend, but I guess this is just like a non-age stated, non-proof stated. It's got to be on here somewhere, and I just am missing it. Having those different types of American barrels in there gives it a really unique flavor. And yeah, it just has this great malt note. I told you before, there's like some honey and some fruitiness to it. I was identifying it as like apricot, but I could see how it could be that orange note that I typically get from Glenmorangie. It's bright. It's light. And I could see now what I was picking up as a slightly smoky note. I think that's that barrel char. And the reason it comes across is and it's almost fudgy now that I know what I'm having. There's almost a chocolate kind of mocha fudgy note to it. And that makes sense because most scotches do not use American rye cask, and they don't use virgin oak or new charred oak cask. And so I think that barrel char, that fresh oak note, in what is probably a younger whiskey since it's not age stated, I think it shines through differently on a Scotch than it would on a bourbon or a rye, because it's just such a unique note on a Scotch palate. Most Scotch distillers aren't doing that. Deanston Virgin Oak is a great Scotch that's using new charred oak. Raasay, Isle of Raasay, is one of my all-time favorite whiskeys of any style. I love sipping on Raasay. They use rye cask in their blend. But man, this might be one of those times where I'm gonna have to go give Glenmorangie some more opportunities on a neat sip and just sit with it and think about it, because it's coming across much better tonight than it ever has for my palate. Now, again, this is not a super old bottle, and it has really been sitting for probably like a month or 2 months now, to where it's been able to open up. And that really can change a Scotch as well, so that could be part of it. But because we're using this as one of our well whiskeys for cocktails, and because this is kind of Taylor's go-to, we'll be keeping it in stock for sure. So as you can see, this is almost done. I'm excited to get into another bottle of it, let that one open up, and see what happens, because this has just been such a good pour. And, man, yeah. Like I said, I gave Taylor the prompt of stumping me. I think it's quite obvious she did that. And this is what's fun about blind tastings. If you have an ego about proving to people that you know about whiskey, or if you want to be the person that knows everything, blind tastings are not the hobby to get into. But if you want to have an open mind, learn, see how your palate changes, or see how on a specific day things could be different, get rid of your biases and just go after something and try it. It's a really eye-opening experience. And I do want to say that my wife Taylor felt terrible today. She has not been. She's definitely under the weather, and she's fighting it like a champ. And I do appreciate her being willing to take the time to think this out and put this together while she wasn't feeling great. So, babe, if you're watching this, thank you for doing that. And man, I just never thought a theme would be under 100 proof and would wreck me quite like this did. Yeah. Glenmorangie Triple Cask Reserve. It's like a $30-something bottle. Scored highest. JT Mellick Rice Whiskey from Louisiana. It's at least the second time it's been featured on our channel now. I think the other video that I put JT Mellick in hasn't come out at the time of me doing this tasting, but probably will be released before you see this. So have fun wrapping your brain around that. Cannot believe I thought Buffalo Trace was a rye, and I mean, I missed that so bad. And Hibiki is such a great bottle, and I love Hibiki Harmony, and it just didn't taste like it tonight. So I don't know if that was because of what it was up against or my palate, or if I just think Hibiki's fantastic and I'm giving it all these ups. But really eye-opening stuff. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to support the channel, the best way you can do that is by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Until next time, as always, please drink responsibly, drink respectfully, but most of all, please have fun doing it. Thank you for joining us. Cheers.